It's a pleasure to be here, and I welcome everybody here for this 50th birthday event. And I also would again like to pay tribute to the founders and inventors of Flip, Fred Fisher and Fred Spies. Something that Ken just said reminded me of some of my experiences on Flip, and that is the quarters. You can understand the living quarters on Flip when you realize that Fred Fisher was more or less an athlete in his young days, and the baseball bat story is probably goes back. I think he was pretty much a professional tennis player, but quite an athlete. And to make things worse, Fred Spies was a World War II submarine hero. I think he had more deployments, or has the record for deployments in the Pacific during the war. And so to Fred Spies, this was a luxury vessel. And so when the chief scientist here comes aboard and shares a room with four, it's different than on a British ship where they serve you tea. I've had that experience too. But it's nice. I've had the experience of being in the North Atlantic on a British ship being served tea, and I tell you, I'd rather be on Flip, so there's no comparison. You've heard some of the technical background, but Flip is truly unusual, and I have a little anecdote to tell you about how unusual it is. And for those of you that are going to go out on Flip, I urge you to take a look at Flip when you walk through again and try to envision what Flip is going to look like when it's flipped. You may think that's a trivial thing, but on one of my cruises, the cook for Flip wasn't available, and I guess Bill Gaines found a Navy cook from a submarine that was on leave, and he came on board for those 2 weeks. So that morning before the cruise, a ship came, the truck came and delivered the food, and the cook duly stored the food in the various bins all over Flip, and we went out and flipped, and he couldn't find anything. Not anything. So when you go on Flip, or if you have been on already, and look around, just try to envision, particularly the inside spaces, what it's going to look like when it's flipped. Because right now you see strange little stairways on the ceiling and various things like that. So it's quite an experience. Flip has been an important instrument for science at Scripps, and I want to mention one other thing before I move on, and that is that Flip also represents the constant support that we've received from our sponsors, and mainly the Navy. And that support is very, very important. While you hear scientists come up and tell you about their accomplishments, et cetera, what makes an oceanographic institution function is really the engineers, the crew, and support people. You can grow a scientist in 5 or 10 years, but it takes 15 to 20 years to grow an experienced seagoing engineer. And only with that continuing support can we function and excel and do the things that Frank talked about in his talk. So I would like to thank our supporters again, and our future supporters, for contributing to our ongoing efforts, not just in the individual scientific efforts, but in maintaining our capability to do that. And that means the people here at Scripps that really do the job. Finally, I'd like to mention that Ken, mentioned I got here 20 years ago, and I assumed the directorship of MPL, and I have the typical management skills of an academic. I don't want to, which means none. But then there's a second ingredient, and it's luck. And more or less the first thing I did, the first decision I made, our previous assistant director, Charlie Bishop, was retiring, and I had to pick the new assistant director. And I picked Bill Gaines, interviewed many people, and he was the obvious person. And that's why Flip exists. So I did that one thing 20 years ago, and Bill Gaines has been working on it for 20 years. And he then eventually picked Tom Delfinos, and that's why we can do things out at sea. Rob mentioned the getting on an airplane at the airport. Well, if you haven't noticed, they're always changing crews. Some captain comes on, it doesn't matter, it's all the same plane and what have you. We can't change crews here, okay? We have one skipper. There isn't another person in the world that can operate Flip. So, again, that importance of the continuity of this place and of our people are really important. I want to thank our supporters. I want to thank the people that run Flip, Bill and Tom, and all our engineers and crews and technicians for this great job and this great day. Thank you.